All right, everybody, let's get started. Thanks again for joining us today over your lunch hour. Today we are going to be covering the FY26 how to apply information session, which we're going to be going over the off-year application for the Grants for Organization program. We're going to hold our time to about an hour today. And you're going to hear from myself. I'm Emily Sollenberger. I'm a program director here at the State Arts Council, and I'm joined by my colleague Laura Weiss, who is my our co-program director for the GFO program. So you've probably seen or heard from one of us at some point throughout the past couple of weeks about this session or the GFO program and reminders ahead. So we're going to go through some of that information to get started. So for those of you who are not on Google Meet as much as we are here at the State Arts Council, here's a quick reference shot of some of the features for Google Meet. If you're on a desktop or laptop, you'll likely see all of these controls towards the bottom center of your screen. So just be mindful again of your mute button, or your microphone button to turn on and off today. If you could please remain on mute during this period, that would be great. There's a camera function right next to that. You can choose to be on or off camera, whatever you're most comfortable with. There's also closed caption options. It is the box with the two C's in the middle right next to the video. Those are auto-generated, just to be mindful of that. You're welcome to use reactions. So if you want to do a thumbs up or a heart, we welcome that as well. Laura is going to be presenting her screen today, so just be mindful of that box with the arrow in the center. To not click on that. We will try to have some time for Q&A at the end of today's session, but it will be a little tight most likely. But if we do have time, we'll ask you to use that raise hand feature, which is a hand like this, so we can call on you in order of those questions. And then on the next slide here, you'll also see there's a chat function towards the bottom right corner. So if you are unable to use your microphone or want to put any comments or questions that we can answer probably later on in today's session, please use the chat function. And again, if you're on a mobile device, it might look a little bit different for you. All right, and to kind of get into our work today, we start with a couple of grounding slides. So I'm going to read these aloud for accessibility purposes. The first is our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Accohonic Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Chaptico Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanticoke Tribe, Nasu-Wawash Band of Indians, Piscataway-Conway Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Yakagani River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge that the right of the land and waters to heal so that they can continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them can be fully restored. And Laura just dropped the link in our chat if you'd like to learn more about our land acknowledgement statement and project on our website. The next is our equity and justice statement, and that is the arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. The vision of the State Arts Council plays an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And we do this through our mission, which advances the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. This next slide on the screen shows 5 goals to our strategic plan. We are just at the tail end of this particular strategic plan and have another that has been approved, but we're just kind of working out those next steps to make them more public. So for now, these are still very much relevant. So I'm going to read the bolded portions here. Goal 1 is to increase participation. Goal 2 is to provide intentional support. Goal 3 is to build capacity. Goal 4 is to leverage connections. And Goal 5 is to bolster Maryland arts. This next slide here is really some guardrails and things to keep in mind throughout today's meeting. Laura and I are going to be doing a lot of the talking, so this is just some great things to keep in mind moving forward. And that is to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, apply the idea yes and, I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it, and balance speaking and listening. This next slide is just a little bit more about our professional development opportunities. You found this info session through our Eventbrite page, so that is the same page where you'll find other opportunities throughout the year. So things that are really specific to our program areas like information sessions and how to apply sessions just like this, but we also offer other topic-specific questions with collaborators and partners throughout the year. So I believe Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts has a session coming up soon and holds legal office hours regularly with us. And then we have also some other things that will be happening and are in the works for planning as well. The State Arts Council has also been doing some regional office hours. We've been doing those throughout the year. We probably need this slide probably needs updated, but we've been coming in person to your community. So we actually held 10 different in-person office hours this calendar year. So we're working on plans for the upcoming calendar year to come to communities near you. So look out for those. And then we also work with Maryland Citizens for the Arts in their planning of the Maryland Arts Summit, which happens most of the time in June each year. So that is very much our arts communities summit to share more in the field. Next are different ways to get involved with us at the State Arts Council. We rely on you as the public and our grantees and representatives of the arts community to provide input and help us in our programming. One major way is to evaluate our applications for different programs as a panelist. So you would work with program directors depending on the program and get professional development training on how to review applications. Also includes implicit bias training and grant making. And it's also a compensated role. So depending on the program, there's different compensation and different requirements. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to us, or you can also go to the Ways to Get Involved page of our website. Some other opportunities that show up there might be editors roles for programs, judges for things like our Poetry Out Loud program, and sometimes we will also have employment opportunities. Okay, so moving forward into the meat of our why we're here, the Grants for Organization program. So today's agenda, we're going to review a quick overview of the program itself. We're going to go through the timeline and some next steps. We're going to go through the off-year application and financial table. We're going to talk a little bit about our funding formula, the Smart Simple grant platform, and hopefully have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. And just as a reminder, this is really specific to the off-year application only today. we already had an information session around the on-year application. So that's that full application with the panel review. That was held a couple weeks ago, so you can find that specific recording on the GFO page of the website. So I'm going to go through a quick overview here of the Grants for Organization program. So as a reminder, this program specifically provides operating support to our organizations across the state. So the goal is to strengthen and sustain our full arts infrastructure by providing that general operating support. This current year of FY25, we awarded just about $18.1 million in general operating support through this program to about 309 organizations across the state, which is really exciting. And we know we've got some new organizations coming in for the FY26 cycle, so we're hoping to bump that up to over 320 for this upcoming year, which is also very exciting. Another reminder that the off-year application deadline is going to be Sunday, December 15th this year by 11:59 p.m. So that deadline is the same every year. So that is why it's on a Sunday this year. We don't shift that by day. So just note that as you're planning your schedules and planning to complete this application on time, that we will not be able to provide technical assistance over the weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. So just be mindful of that. Laura and I typically work around 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. So you can usually catch us then. But please do plan ahead if you need that last minute support. So moving forward into what it means to be in an off year versus perhaps an on year, especially if you might be new to your team and this might be your first time figuring all of this stuff out. So as an overview, the GFO program is set up in a 3-year cycle. You still have to complete an application each year, but the cycle really refers to the type of application. So during your on year, which happens every 3 years, you will complete a full or longer application, and you'll also be reviewed by a panel that year. And by going through that review process with the panel, that is where you get your panel score, and that is used to determine your funding. And we'll talk about that a little bit further on when we talk about the funding formula. So you do that particular piece, that on year every 3 years, and then the 2 off years in between, which is what this application is all about. That is a shorter application, and it does not involve a panel review. So it involves the staff, Laura or myself, reviewing that short application. So you can see on your screen for this upcoming cycle for FY26, the folks that are in an on year are groups that fall into Music C, Dance, or Multidiscipline A, or any new organizations coming into the program for the very first time. The folks that are in off years, you'll see are most likely you all. So that would be our organizations in theater, service, folk and traditions, Multidiscipline B, or music, literary, or our visual and media arts organizations. So you'll see in FY27, the folks that will then go into an on year, and then in FY28, the folks that go in an on year, and then the cycle moves forward again in FY29. Okay. So moving into what that kind of breaks down to in a yearly timeline here. So right now on November 1st, the application is open. It's in Smart Simple, our grants platform. So you have access to this particular application now. It is due Sunday, again, December 15th by 11:59, and that is in the Smart Simple system. So everything is submitted online and must be submitted no later than 11:59 p.m. on the 15th. And again, just that reminder is here that we can only provide technical support during those business hours. After applications are submitted through January and April, that kind of 4-month period of time, the staff, Laura and myself, are reviewing all of the off-year applications and the financial statements and financial tables that are associated with the application. So it does take a little bit of time because we're also reviewing on-year applications as well and working with our panel going through that process. Then in May and June is when we come together to provide the recommendations for funding to our council. That's when our grant amounts are determined based on our budget, which is when we receive it around that time as well. And we'll talk about that, how that works in the funding formula. So it does take several months to get through all of the reviews of all the different types of applications, wait for our budget in the spring, and then work the formulas for each organization in the program. Notifications of the grants are then sent at the very start of FY26. So we fall into a traditional fiscal year of July 1st through June 30. So we do have to wait until the fiscal year starts before notifications are sent out. So we try really hard to get them out as early as we can, but it usually ends up being mid to late July when you receive that notification. An additional note here that every August 15th, a final report is due for the GFO program. So for FY25, if you've received funding this particular fiscal year, your final report will be due August 15th of 2025. And that has to be completed and approved before funding for the next fiscal year can be sent out. And then just ongoing support that we offer throughout the year. We're available to answer questions, provide support, meet with your staff, board, and other teams, experience your programs, events. So please send us invitations as things come up for you. We'd love to join you and work with you. Okay, and then just a couple of reminders as we're moving forward closer to that December 15th deadline that there are a couple of state holidays that Laura and I will not be available. One is coming up next Tuesday, the 5th for Election Days will be closed. Monday, the 11th for Veterans Day will also be closed as a state holiday. And then Thursday and Friday of Thanksgiving, that Thursday and the following Friday, we will also be closed. So just keep that in mind as you're planning. We will try to get back to you as soon as we can as you're preparing your applications. All right, so I'm going to hand it off to Laura to go through the application.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us here to go through our off-year application. So here we go. It's pretty brief, which hopefully you are happy about. So it starts out the application. There's just some general contact information that really is pulled from your Smart Simple account. There is one note that if you have not yet included your unique entity identification, the UEI, we do need that information. This has been something, this is a federal requirement. It's been in existence for a little bit of time now, so hopefully your organization has gotten this. It previously was the DUNS number that has moved into this new system. So if you don't have your UEI, you do need to proceed forward with sam.gov to get that information. If you have questions about that or you're not sure if you have it or not, you can feel free to reach out to myself or Emily to talk further about that. But we can't really help you with getting it as it is a federal requirement. So just know that that is something that, that we do need to get from you. In addition to that, the application includes just a very brief narrative, your financials, there's a few attachments, and then finally, there's just an authorization signature at the end. I do just want to point out that there are some resources available on the website, including the guidelines for the program. It's always helpful to take a look through this. It really kind of gives you the very, the fine print and other details about the program, so you can take a look through that. There are also Word document versions of the narratives and the rubrics associated with the application. Also an Excel version of the financial template. So if that's something that maybe your treasurer or your financial officer needs to kind of work through your finances, there is an Excel version of that on the website. And then also this slide deck and this recording will also be on the website shortly. So that way you can always reference this as well. So just a reminder, Emily already went through this, but the off-year application, it does not involve scoring from panelists. Your panel score kind of travels forward from your last completed on-year application. So there's no scoring involved. The staff, myself and Emily, we're just going through the applications for review process. This also means that there are no extension assignments associated with this review process. So there's no artistic activity visits or in-depth conversations. Those only happen during the on-year. Last year, we went through a process to significantly streamline the off-year application. So again, it's very brief. And of course, in comparison to the on-year application, it's much, much faster. Just a couple of questions to go through. So here it is. The first question is, has your mission, vision, goals, or values significantly changed since your last application? It's just a yes or no question. If you answer yes, an additional text box is going to appear and it's going to ask you to please explain those changes and to, in your response, address what the changes are, the reasoning behind the changes, and how those changes have impacted the organization and its programming. So just giving us a little bit more information about that change. And if there haven't been any significant changes, then you just answer no, and there's no narrative associated with it. The next question asks, has your organization's programming significantly changed since your last application? Significant changes would include adding or removing a program from the activities chart that was in your last on-year application. So that big chart that's in the on-year application, that's what we're kind of referencing here. So if something has been removed from that or you've added something new, then you would reply yes to this question. And again, a little text box is going to appear where you can then explain the changes in your organization's programming. And in your response, we ask you to please address what the changes are, the reasoning behind the changes, and how those changes have impacted the organization. If there haven't been any significant changes, you're more or less doing the same type of programming just in the new year, then you're going to answer no here. And again, there would be no narrative response associated with this. And then the final question here is, have there been any additional challenges or updates? So this might include changes in operations, staffing, leadership, things like that, since your last application that you feel MSAC should know at this time. Again, yes or no question. If you answer yes, you're asked to then please briefly explain those challenges and or updates and the steps that the organization has taken to address those challenges and or updates and any additional details to why these activities occurred. Again, so we're really looking for big changes, big updates, any significant challenges that your organization is facing. That's what we're really looking for here. And if things are more or less the same, no major changes, no major challenges, then again, you would answer no, and there's no narrative response here. And that's it. That's the entire narrative section of the application. It's very straightforward, just the yes or no questions. And you would only have narrative responses if you answer yes to any of those questions. Patrice, I see your hand, but we're going to wait till the very end for all of our questions. Okay, so we'll swing back to you if your question hasn't been answered. The next section is really looking at your financials. There are some changes here, so I want to point those out. In the past, the threshold for if you need an audit or not was $600,000. That has increased to a total allowable income of $750,000. So if you're under that threshold of $750,000, a submission of the organization's most recently completed fiscal or calendar year financial statement is needed. So that would just be a simple profit and loss statement or something like that from your organization. That's all that we need, and it does need to be signed by either a professional accountant or your organization's fiscal officer. That financial statement must be submitted by the application deadline. If your total allowable income is over $750,000, that's when we do need an audit from your organization. So that external audit, that would need to be prepared by a CPA firm. The completed audit should be submitted by the application deadline. However, you'll see here a note in italics. We know that, in the fall, it tends to be when a lot of organizations are doing their audit work. So if your audit is not complete by December the 15th, you can extend that. You just need to reach out to your program director, so either myself or Emily, to let us know that that's going on for your organization. We just need to receive the final audit by March 1st, 2025 at the latest. So if you fall into that camp, just let us know. We'll provide you with additional instructions on what you should include with your application, and then how to send that updated audit by March 1st to us. The other part that you're going to need to complete as the off-year application is the financial table. So the financial table is basically, it's going to be a table that's within the application, and using that submitted financial statement or audit, you're going to enter all of the income or the expenses for your arts organization or arts programs most recently completed fiscal year, so that the table matches everything that appears in that financial statement or audit. We ask that in the table, you'll see that there are a couple of columns. There's a column for notes or instructions. And we ask that you help us to identify how to connect the dots between the financial statement and the table. So if you're able to tell us, which line this is pulling from the financial statement, or how you're determining what that number is on the table, how that matches to the statement, that's going to really help us to understand how everything appears. Because essentially what Emily and I have to do is we have to align everything that appears in the table to your statement or your audit. So any instructions you can share would be extremely welcomed there. Emily and I also just recorded yesterday a specific kind of instructional video just about the financial table. So that is going to be available on our website in the next couple of days. It really walks you through that entire process, so you can reference that as well. One note here, if you are an arts program, and that means that you are not an entirely arts-based organization, so this oftentimes is a smaller arts program that is a part of perhaps a college or university or some kind of parent organization. We're looking for the table to reflect just the arts program of your financial statement. So we're not looking for, if you're part of a college, for example, we're not looking for the entire college's financials to appear in the financial table. It would just be for the arts program. And again, we walk through that in detail in this additional financial table tutorial video. So check that out if you have any questions, and of course, reach out to us as well. The last part of the application is just a few simple attachments. We'll need your IRS letter of determination, just so that we have that on file showing that you are a nonprofit. And then we also just need an updated signed W-9 form, so that way we are able to pay your grant at the end of the process. A couple of just helpful hints for you is that we are available to review portions of your application to offer any kind of feedback on it prior to the submission of the application. Really, for the off-year application, because it is so streamlined and so much simplified, there's probably not a huge need for this. But if you are feeling like you want us to take a look, or if you have questions or you're uncertain about something, certainly feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to take a glance through an application. We do need to have some time to prep for that. So we are asking that those requests are made no later than November the 27th. And unfortunately, we can't take any requests after that date. But reach out to us with questions, and we'll be happy to take a look. All right, I think I'm going to hand it over to Emily here to talk about the funding formula.
Great, thanks, Laura. So I mentioned this earlier about how your panel score might fit into the funding formula. So here it is in full. There are three main variables that make up the GFO funding formula that we're looking at for each year. So whether you're in an on year or an off year, we still use the same funding formula. So it is the total allowable income, which that is the income that comes from the financial table that Laura mentioned. So that's why it's really important for us to have that financial table completed, and we can cross-check your financial statements to confirm that total allowable income number. We then multiply that by the panel score. Again, that's determined only in the on-year application review process. So in your off years, that panel score transitions forward. So you essentially have that same panel score for 3 years. And then the cap allocation percentage, that is the last thing that we are figuring out. So that is determined by our fiscal year budget that we get each year. Again, it comes around the spring, so it is a bit later in the process. And then we also determine it by your organization tier. We have 5 different tiers based on budget size. So there are 5 different cap allocation percentages, and that's how we get to your grant amount. So you can see an example here at the bottom of this particular slide. If you have $500,000 in allowable income, say you get a 90% panel score, and perhaps the cap allocation percentage is 7% that year for your particular tier, your grant award would be $31,500. So moving ahead into kind of where we got to the 5 tiers. A couple of years ago, we went through a transition or an editing process to get to what we're calling our equitable funding formula. So that is really looking specifically at that cap allocation percentage and moving into a kind of a transition period, if you will, to get to some larger goals. So we started to roll this out in FY24. So we are going into the 3rd year of this for FY26, where we're doing a slow rollout or a 5-year transition period to get close to some of these goals based on the tier. So you can see on your screen that tier 1 are our smaller organizations under $500,000. We're looking to get them upwards of 15% as a cap allocation percentage. Again, we're in the middle of this transition period, and then these are just goals. So they might change. They're not going to be, really solid numbers, but these are just what we're reaching towards at the State Arts Council. And then you'll see tier 2 are slightly, they're still small organizations, but slightly larger, working towards 10%. Goal 3 or tier 3 are mid-size organizations, and we're going to try to maintain those folks. And then tiers 4 and 5 are our largest organizations, and we're looking to decrease the percentage for those particular organizations. So again, we're in year 3 of a 5-year transition period to get towards these goals. We're in the middle of this kind of transition period right now. And part of this this transition period involves a few other kind of transition priorities. So we also, in the midst of this, we've never had a cap on the GFO grants. So we are also kind of working our way to a $1 million cap. So no one organization would get more than $1 million. We also are looking at increasing tier 1, our smallest organizations, at a faster rate during this 5-year transition period. Similarly with tier 2, with some steady growth over 5 years. Tier 3, we're looking again to maintain our mid-sized organizations. And then tier 4 and 5, we're decreasing, but we're not decreasing at a rate that is more than 1.5% annually from year to year to get to those goals. And this is what it looks like in practice over the past 2 years. So I'm not going to go into a tremendous amount of detail because you all will get these slides afterwards if you want to look a little bit closer. But you'll see on the left side, the tiers are smallest at the top, largest towards the bottom, the number of organizations for FY24 and FY25. Then the next 2 columns are what the cap allocation percentage looked like for FY24 and FY25. So you can kind of see, if you're looking at tier 1, that kind of slight increase in the cap allocation percentage. And then if you look at the bottom for tiers 4 and 5, you'll see a slight decrease, and then those kind of maintain numbers in between. And then the last two columns there show the amount of funding by tier. So in those groupings of organizations, how much of the GFO budget was going to that particular tier. So you can kind of see the priorities and the shifts that are being made here. Okay, so that is the funding formula. So next we're going to go into where you can find the application and get started if you haven't already, and that is through the Smart Simple grants platform. So you can access that on nearly every page of the State Arts Council website, but you can also type in marylandarts.smartsimple.com, and that will also get you to the grant portal. As an applicant, you probably already have a Smart Simple account. Somebody in your development office, whoever is in charge of your grants, probably have that. But if you want to register, then you can go in to click the register button from that landing page. Again, just be sure when you're completing your organization profile or updating your organization profile to perhaps new information that's changed over the past year, make sure you include that UEI information that Laura went over at the beginning. And again, make sure you've got your best contact information. So we know that there's been a lot of transition among staff members. There's always new folks that are coming on board. So just make sure you have the best email connected to your account. So that way, when you get notifications, you get reminders around reports and things like that, that it's going to the best person. So here's what that landing page looks like as a reminder. So if you go to the marylandarts.smartsimple.com, you'll want to log in using that particular email and your password. And then you will click into that. And then it'll bring you to a dashboard. It'll look a little bit different for everybody, but as an organization, you'll have a number of opportunities. There's probably more than 2 in there right now, but you get the gist of what it might look like. So you'll want to look for the My Application section, and then you'll want to click on Opportunities. That's where all the opportunities, the grant funding opportunities will be for your organization. So you want to click into that. And then that will bring you to a listing where you'll find all of those different opportunities. For you all, if you're in an off year, you're going to want to look for that Grants for Organization off year application in the listing. There is another one you'll see, Grants for Organizations, it'll say full application. The intent to apply should not be there. So you should see 2 options. You want to make sure you click the off year and click the Apply Now button right next to it. From there, it's going to bring you to the application itself and provide some additional instruction at the top to really activate the application to see all the pieces and get you access. You want to click that Save Draft button right away. So that way it can take you through all the different pieces. And as Laura mentioned, it'll take you to those different application questions and the financial table. Now, which is very exciting, Smart Simple saves automatically. It hadn't been doing that for a while. So that is a new feature. So you can enter information and it should save automatically. We still advise, click that Save Draft button just in case, but it should save for you. And you can always access your draft from the In Progress section of your dashboard as well. So if you want to work on it one day and come back to it, you do not need to go through that same process of opening up a new application. You'll just go to the In Progress section to find your draft there. And as a final reminder, the application deadline is December 15th by 11:59 p.m. We do not provide extensions for this particular program, so please make sure you plan ahead and get that in by the deadline. Okay. And of course, we are here to help. So with that, I think we've got about 20 minutes. So I think we can open it up to any particular questions or anything that's coming out of the chat, Laura, that we want to uplift.
Yeah, sure. I was just typing to Haley here. Haley had asked for the direct link for the financial information video that I mentioned earlier. Haley, we actually literally just recorded it. So it will be, it's in process right now through YouTube. So it should be on the website probably early next week sometime. And then we'll also send it out.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Patrice, go ahead. Hello.
Hi, thanks for this. I have just two questions. One is about the question on the off-year report about has there been any additional changes in operation, significant changes in operation staff leadership. If I included that in the report that I filed in August, do I still include that in this off-year application?
I don't think it's necessary, but it also doesn't hurt as a reminder for us to say, you know, we have a new executive director who's in place and maybe a little about the process, but it doesn't need to be anything of length if we've already been in touch about that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the other question I have is about changes in programming. While we won't have, by December, we won't have started, but we are planning a whole new leg of programming. So I will have maybe finished the first stage of planning. Do I mention that or do I wait for next August?
Again, I would probably recommend including maybe some planning around that and a framework, maybe some goals that are associated, just so we get a sense of what to expect. Okay. And that might, you know, that might impact your financials. So if we know that information and we might see a shift in some kind of way, it's always good to include it to be on the safe side. And it's always a good reminder for us, since we're reviewing so many applications, to get that kind of nice reminder within the application too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Daniel.
Hi, this is Dan from Milburnstone Theater. Actually piggybacking off of that last one about significantly changed programming. With some of the concerts and one-night events that we offer at our theater, we kind of do on a rotational basis each season. So if we're still offering the concerts, but just maybe a different artist, same genre, just a different artist, would you guys consider that a significant change, or would that just be it's the same kind of events that we were hosting the year before?
Yeah, thanks so much, Dan. Hi. Hi. I would say that is, you know, if it's still kind of under, let's say you have a main stage jazz program or something like that, but it's different artists every year. I would say that that is not a significant change. That's just the individual programming for the year. But if you went from, you know, it used to be a main stage jazz program and now it's a main stage classical program, that would be a significant change because it's completely a different new program for your audiences. So I think it's kind of looking at the larger buckets and if those have significantly changed. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Any other questions that folks would like to vocalize? Jennifer.
Hi, this year is the first year that we've been in the program. When you talk about the final report that's due in August, are there interim reports that are due before then, or is there just a single final report?
Yeah, that's a great question and a good reminder for this particular group. The GFO program used to have interim reports, but we actually just got rid of those this year. So you only have the final report associated with the GFO program.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see there's something in the chat from Juanita. Oh, okay, great. Laura's answering that one too. Perfect. And Dan, I see your hand is still raised. I don't know if that's an old or a new question, perhaps. Great. Thanks.
That was old, sorry.
Wonderful. Any other questions, please feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. And also just, you know, as a reminder as well, that every organization is unique to their particular organization and community. So what might be significant updates or changes for one organization might be completely different for another. So when in doubt, please feel free to tell us the information. It doesn't hurt anything, or just be in touch with Laura and myself, and we can always talk through any changes if you're unsure. Okay. Well, we will not belabor this any further if there are no questions. So again, thank you for joining us today. As a reminder, we will post this recording probably not until next week, along with the slide deck we used today, so you'll have that as a resource. Again, there's other resources on the website already that you have access to. Our guidelines, rubrics, the application questions are in a Word document, so you can download that and start typing right into it. On your application details, if you want to look at that for reference as well. And again, Laura and I are here to help, so do not hesitate to reach out to us. So thanks again for spending your lunch hour with us, and look forward to talking to you and hearing more about the work ahead in this next cycle. Thank you.
Thank you.